And that's all he's asking for, is to recognize him. I will be your help. I will be your strength. I will be your healer in times when you are sick. When mama and you ain't talking, I will be there to talk to you. When your girlfriend then turn your back on you, I will be there to say, come on, baby, we can go this route. I'm going to be there when nobody else is there. When you're late at night, when you're in your bedroom and you're crying and the baby's doing this and you don't know what to do next, and you're not equipped to be a mother because there is no books that said you're supposed to do this, or you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to check the baby. There is no book that really tells you how to be a mother. But you can go down on your knees. You can go to the Father. You can say, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. Guide my steps. Teach me what I need to do. And God will answer. It's a one-on-one relationship. It's not me and my sister and my brother with God. It's a one-on-one relationship. Because at the end of the journey, no matter how hard it seems like it's taking you to get there, no matter how long like it seems that it's taking you to get there, there is a prize waiting for us. God has given us a promise. He has given us a promise that he is going to be there with us because he's God Almighty. What father do you know that creates a child and will not be there with that child?
Well, you know, I hear people when you try to witness to them, they'll say, but there's hypocrites in the church. I'm like, well, there's hypocrites everywhere. You know, but church is a hospital for spiritually sick folk. There's something there for everything, for everybody. And like a hospital, some are delivered, some are going through withdrawal, some are getting a diagnosis through the word of their Lord, of their heart and mind condition. The idea being that if you are ill physically, you don't care where they take you to get healed. So why stand on hypocrisy that you see in others when you are being a hypocrite yourself because you say you want healing, but you won't go to a place to get healing? Any place that is teaching and preaching the word of God is a place where you can become healed. Too many Christians stand up and they identify more with the world than they do with Christ. But that's okay, because you don't really understand watching them that Jesus says, he who has begun a good work in them will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. Look.
Indeed, months and over the years, our community at large, and particularly the black community, has witnessed a degradation in relationships between our citizens and law enforcement officials, as well as other community leaders, with respect to engagement. We have as perfect examples the death of Trayvon Martin, and more recently we have Michael Brown, who was also a victim of what I would call a fatality in dealing with someone in the community or with a law enforcement official. And even more recent, again in Ferguson, another death has been reported of a black youth. We have with us tonight former law enforcement official, and we also have ministers who are going to discuss with us ways that our young people can engage law enforcement officials and others in the community who may have a weapon without it ending in a fatality. We hope you will stay with us, and please feel free to send your thoughts in to Service for Christ Ministries at P.O. Box 44-1141, Fort Washington, Maryland 20749. We will announce this address later in the program. So look forward to you tuning in with us this evening as we try to unveil some of the truths of what can be done to start reducing some of the fatalities that are occurring within our community. We'll be right back with you with our panel discussion. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by our panel, Minister Ellen Williams, a community activist, and has participated in various community programs with respect to young people in our community. Also, Mr. Jay Baker, who is a former law enforcement personnel, and also Minister Joyce Scott, who is going to provide us with additional information on the impact of all of this on the family. I'd like to welcome all of you to focus on the community. I'd like to begin then with Mr. Jay Baker. Can you tell us, sir, through your experience in law enforcement, what are some of the things, the various types of things that can be done when young people, indeed citizens, are interacting with law enforcement officials and others so that it does not end in a fatality?
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Jones. As you understand, as you can see with the news of late, there's been a number of shootings of black males by police officers, and everybody is scrambling to find out what answers can be done, what can be done, what can be done in order to curb all these types of situations or incidents. As a former law enforcement officer, I can try to provide some tips that may be helpful to both citizens and maybe police officers. And one of the things I really feel deeply about is that the education part of understanding on both sides of the table here when you're talking police officers and you're talking about the citizens. So there's a lot of community education that needs to be taught as reference to the citizens, citizens to the police officers to the citizens. But we can't solve that here, so I just basically want to give you guys or the audience an idea of pretty much when you come in contact with a police officer, pretty much to give you an idea of your demeanor. I'll give you an example of a situation like when I'm pulled over by a police officer, and I've actually been pulled over by a police officer. And through my years of training, I've always followed the method that I'm getting ready to explain to you, the audience. Once I noticed that the lights are engaged for me to be pulled over by a police officer, I would find a safe place, pull over to the side of the road. I would stay in my vehicle. I put my hands on the steering wheel, and I'll remain still until the officer comes to my side of the window or once I have engaged in conversation. And from that point, I would follow the instructions of the police officer. And whatever the instructions are, if I have to go to a compartment within the confinement of my vehicle, I will advise the police officer that the things that the information that he wants is located in a certain area in the vehicle. Can I go and retrieve it? I will retrieve that information, give it to the officer. I will put my hand back on the steering wheel, and I will remain there and wait for another instruction. Okay, so if you follow this process completely, acknowledging the police officer's presence by saying yes sir, no sir, being very polite, not trying to invoke anyone or start an argument, just be perfectly polite and just follow the officer's instructions. I think if you follow it all the way through, that you will find that your involvement with the police officer would be a little bit more enlightening as far as you interacting with the police officer. The whole idea is that we're not trying to create a situation. If we just follow the officer's instructions as they direct us and whatever that we need to do to complete that instructions, get the permission from the officer, and you'll find that that particular stop or interaction could be very not rewarding, but it would be something that you probably wouldn't experience before.
Okay, Mr. Baker, I wanted to ask you a follow-up question on this. What about a situation where the citizen or police officer may feel as though that they're being provoked and the engagement escalates? How do you recommend, if the situation is getting out of control, that citizens or police officers would handle?
Again, like I said, it comes with everyone being educated in this situation. Each officer or citizen, you have to give respect. You have to understand the police officer is there to serve and protect. So if you're approached by a police officer, whatever the situation is, just follow the instructions of the police officer. This is pretty much what he's wanting you to do, okay? Not get argumentative, not talk about what your rights are, you know, in that certain situation. Just follow the instructions. And you'll find that that the tension between the two of you would immediately, you know, evaporate. If the officer is aggressive, be polite, be respectful.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to move to Minister Ellen Williams, who is a community activist, and she's been involved in training. Tell us a little bit about what your involvement has been with assisting young people in diffusing hostile, volatile situations that could lead to fatalities.
Well, I used to work at the Metropolitan Police Boys and Girls Club number 11 in Southeast DC, and I worked side by side with my husband, who was a retired police officer. And the one thing that we did in the community was we had a very good relationship with the police officers. We did a lot of workshops, and as my brother said, educating the community, heavily involved with the police, clergy, and the citizens in the community. And when you have workshops on a constant basis, you kind of avoid a whole lot of violence with the police and the citizens, because there's a connection, there's a bond, there's a relationship that's been developed. So I think it's very, very important that you educate the public and that you have more opportunities to interact with the police officer and the citizens, so that you can somewhat avoid these type of incidents that we have been experiencing here lately.
So you found that the engaging with the police officers and community leaders was very helpful, and clergy in forging positive relationships. Do you see much of that going on now?
No, I do not. No, I do not.
Well, what do you think?
I've even gone back to visit the community, and I don't see as many programs as they used to have in the community for the youth.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have any thoughts about these fatalities that are going on across the country, where young people are being killed? In some cases, it's alleged that they're being assassinated. In other cases, it's alleged that they're just suffering fatalities.
It's very sad to see what's going on, and the fact that we can't stop pointing fingers, but we have to find a way to bridge that gap between the police officers and the community, to at least try to have better relationships across the board.
Okay, I want to bring in Minister Joyce Scott. Approximately 7 years ago, her son was murdered, and until this day, the person who committed this fatal act has not been captured, and it has left Minister Scott somewhat empty. And I'd like for you to talk to us a little bit about the incident and how has this had an impact on your family and you?
Well, 7 years ago, someone broke into my son's apartment and shot him. And it was definitely a domino effect on the family. It was to a big surprise because my son was the type of person that helped everybody, and for them not to be able to find out what happened or who killed him. I experienced a whole lot of street crime. It's like the community of police officers they weren't helpful. They didn't give me a lot of help trying to find out what was going on with the situation. I got a lot of feedback, but no help. And it was definitely a domino effect on the family because he left behind 3 children that loved him very much, and these children are being affected by it today. I think this street crime is very sad, and we just need to engage in the community a little more, like these two were saying, that we need more help. There need to be more action than words, more help with the situation, because I didn't get much help with the situation, and I tried, a little investigating myself to go a little further with it, and they just wasn't interested in trying to help me with the situation. So I never heard anything from them. It's just so sad that they stereotype us, and they think that this is what we like, and that we're the streets, and black on black crime, and let them kill each other, and let somebody else do it. This is the way I feel about the situation in hand, because they never found the killer, and they had a lot of evidence. So I just hope and I pray that they can do a little more, step up and do a little more, and be more concerned about the black communities. Stop stereotyping the black citizens, thinking that everybody's bad citizens, and that we have no value and we don't want to do anything in our lives, but we're not all like that. And I think that for the parents, that it starts at home. We need to train these kids, train up a child the way they should go. We need to train our children so when they go out in the communities that they can protect themselves from black crime, being stereotyped, and just because there's 5 men boys in the car, they're stopped, or just because they're driving a nice car, it could be their mom's car, their dad's car, because I experienced a lot of that with my son growing up. Before he was murdered, they would call my house and say, "Is this your car? Your son? Your son said this is your car." They would wake me up in the middle of the night, calling to see if this is your car. Why is he driving this nice car? Things like that, I think we have to address.
Okay. Did you want to tell us your son's name?
My son's name was Lamar John McKelly. They used to call him Dog.
Okay.
He was a good son. He really was a good person. He helped the community. He really helped a lot of people, a lot of young men understand and develop in the community. Okay.
Well, obviously this is a major question of what can be done, and it seemed like to me that according to what you all are saying here on this panel this evening is that we need more community involvement. We need the ministers to be involved, and we need the parents and everyone else to be involved. It seems also, how do you all feel about once one of these tragedies happen, you get a public outcry, and after the public outcry and the protests are done, it seems like everything just goes right back to normal with no action. Do you all have any thoughts about some of our civic and national leaders that don't take any further action to assure that some education is going forth, or that some programs are implemented? Or do you have any thoughts about what can be done?
Well, that's the thing, I think, that as my brother was talking about the education piece and the fact that you're talking about being proactive, I think that what we need to do is to bring the police, the clergy, and the community together. And some of the churches need to be open during the weekdays so they can have educational programs and get the community involved. I think that's something that the pastors and ministers need to pay attention to right now, that we got to find a way to bridge the gap where the clergy can be involved with the community. And one way to do that is open up the doors during the weekdays so that we can have educational programs to help educate the youth and the police officers to bridge that gap. If you don't build those relationships, just like if you don't build those relationships with God, if you don't build that relationship, you will always have tragedies like we're having right now.
Yeah, and we need to train our children. The parents need to train the children how to survive out there in the street if they're going to let them out there in the street after hours. They need to train them how to have a low profile and not agitate the police officers, and not to you have to respect them, as he said. Respect them as officers and not agitate them, and just follow the procedures. And because most young men try to be macho, they think it's my pride. And we have to bring that pride down a little bit. And our dads need to be more involved with our sons and our daughters. And after a murder situation, we need to step it up a little bit. Not quiet down after it's over. When it's over, the funeral's done and over, everybody goes their separate ways. We need to come together more after that situation and build something. Build up the community.
See, some of the things that come out after all these things occur is that this guy did something wrong, or had a record, or was smoking marijuana and was on PCP. We always hear these things after, which gives credibility to who is right and who is wrong. But we must come up with some solutions to augment this death. Because whether a person is smoking marijuana or not, that's not a reason to get killed. That's a reason to go to jail, but certainly not a reason to get killed. Or to have law enforcement. And here in the District of Columbia now, they've relaxed the penalties and so forth and so on, and across the country, a lot of these things. I'm just concerned about the public outcry that nothing is being done. After all the rallies, after all the marches, that citizens feel as though that there's nothing being done, and we still get more of the same, people being murdered or engaging into a fatal death. So, do you have any additional thoughts that you want to share, what citizens can do, what law enforcement can do, or any solutions? Anything else that you can add to what you've already said?
Well, I just think they need to continue to fight for their rights, continue to grow the community, and they have to gain knowledge, educate these kids, educate the parents, because a lot of the parents, they're in the street as well as the kids are. So how are you going to educate your kids if your parents are in the street also doing the same thing, or either together hanging out? We need to educate these kids so when they do go out, they're prepared to go up against whatever they have to go up against, respectfully. And we have to have God first in our lives. We need God in our lives. We need God when these situations happen as a parent. Because if I didn't have God in my life, I probably would have just went absolutely crazy.
Well, there are many people who don't believe in God, and they'll say to you, well, what is God going to do?
He's going to save our lives. He's going to keep us safe. He's going to protect us. He's a protector. He's a life saver.
Okay, anything else? Anyone on the panel?
Well, I just wanted to add on to what our other two guests have spoken about, and I can't say enough about it. Education is definitely the key. Education starts with at home. Education it's not the negative side of education, but education to your kids as to how they live their lives, how to respect one another, how people should be treated, okay? And I feel that since our focus is at this point right now in my conversation is the Black youth's interaction with the police officers. Again, each of them needs to, just have that respect each other. You have respect for the police officer, the police officer have respect for the citizens, okay? And if we approach our gathering or our meetings or for whatever events that we're meeting for violations or criminal activity or whatever, you have to understand the broader side of the picture. And we can't don't have the time to really discuss the issues that pretty much that would drive everything home, but we're just touching the tip of the iceberg as to let folks know how they can curtail a lot of the headbanging between police officers and the Black youths. Pretty much, it's an issue with the Black community. You have your high rates of arrest, you have your high rates of police brutality, you have your higher rates of police shootings, and in the Black communities, all over the country. And it seems not to go outside in other communities. You don't have these kind of issues. And I believe that within the Black community, that the education definitely need to be talked about. Letting the young youths understand that all police officers are not bad. Your first approach in meeting with a police officer should not be a negative one, and it should be vice versa. This is where I'm saying with the education, and this is where the respect for one another comes in. As a Black youth, you have to understand as well that we are in a situation in America what it is. Racism, be it subtle, in some cases, sometimes it's not. It can come out and and when racism is challenged, it seems like it's challenged in such a way, a white officer shooting a Black kid, but we don't see this when the Black officer shoots a Black kid. We don't see that type of outbreak and crying out, as much. It's the education, and this is, to the youths and approaching the police officers. They are there to protect you. The only thing I can just put to this is just like, just follow the instructions. Just follow what the officer's instructions. The officer is what he is, and you have to face the fact. The police officer is a police officer. He does have a job to do. So you have to have the situation is, you come on the scene, the police officer has control. If he tells you to get back, get away, follow the instructions.
Okay.
And you won't have that kind of confrontation. But once the officer is telling you what to do and you rebuking the officer, and the officer ain't gonna tell you what you should do, and once we get into that little confrontation, then it starts escalating. But someone has to be the bigger person. And I think that we as the citizens have a little upper hand on the police officers. So I think that, the citizens should be a little bit more non-combative as a situation when you're being approached by a police officer. There's a lot of things going on with the police officer. He's there to protect, and as you know, there's assaults against police officers.
Thank our guests this evening, Minister Ellen Williams, former law enforcement officer Jay Baker, and Minister Joyce Scott. Each have different experiences in dealing with the impact of youth and family engagement, as well as community involvement with law enforcement officials and persons that are armed with